Welcome back to another news video. If you've been keeping tabs with the latest gaming industry news, you've probably noticed that Xbox has had significant layoffs and they've also closed down a studio. And to make matters worse, CEO Phil Spencer released an internal memo that is just a contradictory, insulting mess. All news article source for this video will be linked down in the description below. Like, sub, do all the YouTube stuff. Let's get into it. So, an Xbox spokesperson stated less than 4% of Microsoft's global workforce was impacted. And it sounds like a small number, but when you consider that there are roughly 228,000 employees worldwide at Microsoft, that equals roughly 9,000 people who were affected by this round of layoffs. And a significant portion of that comes from the gaming division Xbox. Numerous Xbox affiliated studios and departments have experienced job cuts. One of the big moves they made was they closed down a studio called The Initiative. The Initiative is a Microsoft first-party studio. They were established in 2018. It has been shut down entirely. They were working on a highly anticipated game called Perfect Dark, which is a reboot to a darling classic of a game. And apparently, the game had been in rough shape, so it's been canceled. That I can understand. You know, if a game's in development and, milestones can't be met, playtests aren't going well, at some point, your publishers are probably going to pull the plug. Rare Studios was also impacted. They were working on a new IP called Everwild. It's a fantasy adventure. It had been in development for about 10 years, according to reports here, and it's been canceled. The game had an amazing showing recently, and even Phil Spencer was quoted saying that the game was turning out great. Another major cancellation was an unannounced MMORPG being worked on by ZeniMax Online Studios. They are the developers behind Elder Scrolls Online, which is a pretty successful game. I imagine it brings in some good money for Xbox with all of their subs and microtransactions. But the unannounced MMORPG they were working on was called Blackbird, codename. It was canceled. It had reportedly been in development since 2018, and even the studio head, Matt Furore, he also departed the studio. I guess things weren't going so well. Another contradiction, because Phil Spencer recently played the game behind closed doors, and apparently he couldn't put the controller down. He was having so much fun with it. This seems extremely contradictory to that reporting of the game. Like, why would you cancel a game that is that much fun to play? And another unfortunate turnout of events, Romero Games is a studio that is headed by John and Brenda Romero. John Romero was one of the original developers of Doom, the first-person shooter that arguably shot off first-person shooters back in the 90s. Anyhow, I guess they were receiving some funding from Microsoft. All funding has been pulled on their project, so they've had to cancel their game. And as a result, they have massive layoffs going throughout their entire studio. Despite meeting all of their milestones and getting amazing positive feedback from each of their milestones, the funding was withdrawn due to a strategic decision made at a high level. I can't believe that a brand new IP by one of the legends of first-person shooter games has been canceled by Microsoft. And that's just a handful of games that were canceled. There are numerous other unannounced projects across Xbox's portfolio. To blast through a few of the other affected studios and projects, King, the Candy Crush developers, they're seeing some cuts to their workforce, about roughly 10% of their workforce, which is around 200 positions. Turn 10 Studios, the developers behind Forza Motorsports, they are heavily impacted with nearly 50% of their staff affected. That's over 70 reported layoffs. And then several of the Call of Duty co-developing studios, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, High Moon Studios, they are all experiencing job cuts as well. And Blizzard's not safe. Support for Warcraft Rumble will cease in its current form, meaning no more new content. And around 100 people from its team are reportedly laid off. And then Halo Studios, formerly known as 343 Industries, has also experienced some layoffs, widespread cuts as well. And you know, I'm smiling not because I'm happy about this. It's just, it is something we've seen happen repeatedly over the games industry for years and years. And this is not new for Xbox either. This is their 4th round of layoffs in the last 4 years, like massive layoffs. Anyhow, we have some commentary from leadership. Phil Spencer himself released an internal memo, and this comes from insidergaming.com. They posted this memo on their website, and while he did acknowledge the efforts of laid off employees, the way that he wrote this memo came off as extremely insensitive and insulting. Phil Spencer states that the cuts are, quote, necessary to position gaming for enduring success, increase agility and effectiveness, and protect what is thriving, aiming to focus on strategic growth areas. This is like CEO jargon, the typical bullshit that is written in letters that goes out to shareholders in these publicly traded companies. To continue, he also says, simply put, we would not be where we are today without the time, energy, and creativity of those whose roles are impacted. Thanks, I guess. You know, it's like handing out cupcakes to everyone who's laid off as they're walking out the door to say thank you. You know, to make a negative situation seem like a positive, he goes on to write, quote, I recognize that these changes come at a time when we have more players, games, and gaming hours than ever before. Our platform, hardware, and game roadmap have never looked stronger. So Xbox division is making significant profits and growth, yet you're still going to lay off a bunch of people and close down a studio. These are people's livelihoods that are being affected. You're essentially taking away a salary, health insurance. Some of these affected people have moved from other states, maybe even other countries, to come work for your company, and now you're just pulling the rug out from under them. So roughly 9,000 laid off game developers are going to be entering the job market trying to find work. It is already extremely competitive and hard to find work in the game industry. For some, they'll be lucky, you know, they will be picked up right away, find some new studio, land on their feet, and hopefully not experience much interruption. But for many others, this is going to be a huge setback for them. I really feel bad, you know. I've experienced this personally in the 12 years that I've worked in the games industry, being laid off from multiple studios and having to desperately find another job as soon as possible because I've got bills to pay, I've got rent. It's an extremely stressful situation, and I don't even have kids. Like, imagine those who have families. And yeah, some of you will probably write in the comments like, this is business, right? Like, corporations are always looking to maximize their profits. I guess we also shouldn't be surprised because Xbox has acquired so many studios in the last 5 or so years. At some point, you've got to trim the fat, right? I guess what's so shocking about all this is that the games that were all canceled were received extremely well. Aside from, I guess, Perfect Dark, which was having some troubles in development. Yeah, it just seems like such a big contradiction, even in Phil Spencer's memo, talking about all of the growth that their company has had and all the profits they're making. All their numbers are going up, right? And in an effort to maximize profits for their shareholders, let's fire more people. Let's lay them all off and close down a studio. Even if we have the potential to make an amazing game to release on our Game Pass platform, they took it away. Who's making the calls here? Is this really Phil Spencer making these decisions? Or maybe it's the higher-ups in Microsoft? Yeah, at this point, I'm led to believe that Phil Spencer is just a puppet for Microsoft. Satya Nadella is running the ship. I can't imagine he plays video games. He is so focused on AI. On that note, Microsoft has recently invested or plans to invest $80 billion on AI data centers in this fiscal year of 2025. Compensate for that expense, I guess, make some cuts on their gaming division. Yeah, so this all just seems to contradict everything that's been reported from their profits reports. All these layoffs are occurring despite Microsoft's significant profits of over $25 billion in the last quarter. Sure, the acquisitions of ZeniMax Media and Activision Blizzard were expensive as well, with ZeniMax Media costing $7.5 billion and Activision Blizzard acquired for $68.7 billion. So I don't really know what to believe anymore when it comes to Xbox's messaging. Anytime they release a video to promote Game Pass, or even lately with their Asus ROG Xbox Ally, they can't help to talk up how strong the Xbox brand is and how well Game Pass is doing, as well as all of their other services, cloud gaming, Play Anywhere. It just makes me think that all of these layoffs and cuts and closing down a studio, while they are reporting a profit in the last quarter, they aren't making enough. Is Microsoft actually failing behind the curtain? I don't think they would have done all this if they were doing well. Yeah, it would seem that the brand is more important, it's more valuable than the people who are working for you, working on your games to improve your brand. So anyhow, that's all I've got to say about this story. It's a little late for putting out this video. I had a water leak at my house, so this last week has been crazy trying to fix that issue, doing it ourselves here. It's been keeping us super busy, but I decided to turn on the camera today and just get this out there because it is an important news story. If you want to share any of your thoughts or opinions on this story, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I do read them, and I will do my best to respond to you. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more great gaming content. And if you'd like to watch another video from this channel, check out this recommended video right here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.